Hey guys, tonight we're peeling back the sequined curtain on one of history's most dazzling and deranged chapters, the terrifying life of a heroin-addicted showgirl in 1920s Broadway. Forget the jazz hands and feather bows for a minute. Tonight you'll be rubbing shoulders with chorus girls whose lives were somehow messier than your browser history after a long night of just one more episode. It's glitz, glamour, and an avalanche of poor decisions, all set to the sound of distant jazz and questionable medical advice. This one's for the listener who suggested tonight's topic. Thank you for the spark. If you enjoyed wandering through Broadway's dim alleyways and flickering footlights, take a second to like the video and subscribe. Only if you want more of these strange, soft little dives into the past. Let me know in the comments where you're listening from and tell me, have you ever tried to jazz hand your way through an existential crisis? Because somewhere out there, someone can't sleep either, and stories are how we find each other in the dark. Now go ahead and dim those lights. Switch on your fan for that soft, soothing white noise, get cozy, and for tonight's episode, maybe hide any old bottles of cough syrup just in case. Are you ready for a night behind the velvet ropes where the glitter is mostly just bits of broken dreams? Let's pause for a moment. Have you ever wondered what it actually felt like to survive a Broadway dressing room in 1925? Did they really powder their noses between acts, or was it something a bit more pharmaceutical? How many pairs of shoes did a chorus girl wear out in a week? And how many times did she trip over an onstage boa constrictor, literal or metaphorical? Could you have survived the diet of cigarettes, black coffee, and whatever passed for dinner at the automat? And did anyone, anywhere, actually sleep? Or was insomnia just a team sport on 48th Street? Would you last a day dodging stage managers, jazz musicians, and fans who insisted they saw you in something last year? Congratulations! You've just woken up in 1926 backstage at the Winter Garden Theatre. The air smells like powder, sweat, and a faint, suspicious tang of morphine. Your roommate is snoring in pancake makeup, your feet are already bleeding, and you're about to discover just how far a showgirl will go for a little bit of stardom and a lot of heroin. Good luck. You wake up face down on a velvet chaise, one eyelash glued to your cheek and a feathered headband choking your dreams. It's 11:12 a.m, and the sun is already judging you through a crack in the curtains. You have 2 hours to shake off last night's gin, and the vague memory of someone, possibly a magician, proposing in Yiddish. You try to sit up, but your entire left leg is numb, courtesy of the world's lumpiest chaise, and the unfortunate decision to fall asleep still wearing your dance tights. The only thing louder than your headache is the orchestra of city sounds just outside your window. Horns, pigeons, and the distant howl of someone's love life going off the rails in Times Square. The room smells like sweat, talcum powder, and whatever's in the bottle someone left on your dressing table, a heady cocktail that could probably strip paint. You're still wearing half of last night's stage makeup, which now resembles something between abstract art and a cautionary tale. There's a lipstick kiss on your forehead. Could be your own, that's Broadway for you. You never really know where the night ends and the next day begins. You reach for your Kamak and catch your reflection. One false eyelash drooping like a sad umbrella, glitter smudged from brow to chin, and that unmistakable trace of panic that comes from realizing you might have agreed to take tap lessons from a saxophonist at 3 a.m. You shuffle to the bathroom, counting each step like it's choreography, and take inventory of the damage. You peel off the headband, now less fashion statement, more noose, and toss it on the ever-growing pile of accessories doubling as interior decor. Your feet are a disaster, toes bruised and patched with tape and hope. You wiggle them and wince, suddenly nostalgic for the days before you knew what bunions were. On the sink, there's a glass of water. Miracle of miracles, left by your roommate, the unofficial Florence Nightingale of the boarding house. Next to it, 2 aspirin tablets, a peppermint, and a note that reads, "Matinee in 3 hours. Eat something, you feral raccoon." Roommate love comes in many forms. In Broadway, it usually comes with caffeine and sarcasm. Breakfast, such as it is, consists of a stale slice of rye and black coffee that tastes like regret and bargain basement chicory. You choke it down anyway, because there's no time for real food and even less money for it. On the table, a pile of bills and a playbill from last night's show are competing for your attention. You squint at the programme, trying to remember if you actually performed in it or just dreamt you did. Either way, your autograph is scrawled on the back, along with a phone number for someone named Stan. Tap shoes, no questions. The matinee looms, but so does the ritual of getting ready all over again. Ice the knees, curl the lashes, staple your dignity to your slip, and hope the world mistakes exhaustion for mystery. The radiator hisses in the corner, a reminder that modern convenience in New York is just a rumour with a high rent. You fish around for a clean pair of stockings and find only one, so you improvise with mismatched socks and creative optimism. The other girls are already awake, judging each other's hair and hustle from down the hall. There's a crash, a curse. The sound of someone's gramophone playing Ain't Misbehavin' for the 17th time in a row. You hum along, half in defiance, half to remind yourself you're still alive. Before you leave, you stare at the window. Outside, the city pulses with possibility, and maybe just a hint of doom. But for now, you're upright, painted, and marginally conscious. In Broadway math, that's already a win. You grab your battered shoes, stuff your script in your bag, and head out the door, ready? Well, ready enough to face another day under the lights. Because on Broadway, surviving the morning is just another act in the world's strangest, sparkliest show. Breakfast is a ritual, not a meal. You light a lucky strike with hands that still smell like cold cream and backstage nerves, chasing the smoke with the world's saddest cup of instant coffee. Your stomach growls for something solid, but the closest you'll get is half a crawler stolen from last night's closing number. It's not that you don't dream of eggs, bacon, or something more exotic, like fruit that hasn't been floating in a punch bowl since last New Year's Eve. It's just that, in this city, breakfast means whatever you can scavenge from your purse, your memories, or the mysterious box in the icebox labelled "not cheese, do not eat." You take another drag and try not to think about it. There's something soothing about the crackle of tobacco, the way it fills the silence and covers up the distant hum of a city that's already 2 hours ahead of you. Someone down the hall is brewing real coffee, a luxury reserved for birthdays, Christmas, and the day the producer actually hands out paychecks on time. The scent drifts in, tantalising and slightly cruel, a reminder that some girls come from places with mothers who still send care packages. You don't envy them exactly. You just wish you'd thought to ration the Sanka a little better, instead of drinking it like it might turn into champagne if you believed hard enough. The apartment's tiny kitchenette is a war zone of lipstick-stained mugs, chipped plates, and a toaster that exists mainly to threaten electrical fires. You check the bread box, empty. The only jam left is the kind that doesn't expire because it never really qualified as food. So you dunk the Corolla in your cup, hoping sugar and caffeine will make a decent breakfast substitute. Spoiler, they don't. But hunger in showbiz is just another kind of motivation. Across the table, your roommate is halfway through a grapefruit, eating it with the grim focus of a surgeon operating in a minefield. "Keeps you thin," she mutters, even as her eyes wander longingly to the cruller you're pretending not to guard. You offer her a bite out of guilt and camaraderie. She declines, then immediately lights another cigarette, both of you inhaling as if it's going to fill the hole in your stomach. Outside, street vendors are shouting about fresh rolls and apples, but you're down to your last nickel and the matinee call is looming. The radio chirps with a cheerful weather report, promising bright skies and dazzling opportunities for the bold. You wonder if that means you, or just the pigeons fighting over a hot dog bun on the fire escape. Somewhere in the distance, a car backfires, a daily reminder that New York's version of a rooster is mechanical and slightly menacing. The pipes in the wall rattle with every flush from the apartment upstairs, sending you a morning symphony of steam heat and mystery gurgles. You sip your coffee, now cold and bitter, and consider whether the universe is warning you, caffeinating you, or just keeping you humble. There's a strange comfort in the predictability of this not-quite meal. The click of the lighter, the swirl of Sanka in a chipped mug, the banter about nothing in particular. You talk about the weather, the rumours, the dream of being cast in something with actual lines instead of just feathers and fast footwork. You pretend you're not eyeing the clock, counting the minutes until you have to wriggle back into costume and squeeze your dreams into a too-tight bodice. Breakfast ends with a final drag. a dab of powder over yesterday's eyeliner, and the ritual exchange of good lucks and fake smiles. You both know it's not about food, it's about hope, habit, and making do. And maybe, just maybe, it's about convincing yourself that the emptiness in your stomach will someday be filled by applause, success, or, failing that, a real New York bagel. But for now, you rinse the mug, flick the ash, and get ready to hustle. Because on Broadway, the curtain rises whether you're ready or not, and breakfast is just another act in the ongoing show. The line for the communal bathroom snakes down the hallway like a chorus line of irritable ghosts. You balance on freezing tile, elbows flying as you race for a spot at the cracked mirror, all while dodging the landmines of hairpins and whispered insults. Morning in the Broadway boarding house is less glamour and more trench warfare, but with better lighting. You and 12 other women all living the same dream, crammed into rooms so small that privacy is just a rumour, and the realest thing you own is your towel. You shuffle forward in your robe, sleep mask askew, clutching a battered makeup bag like it's both armour and weapon. It's barely past dawn, but the drama has already begun. Someone's lost her soap, another's found her dignity in someone else's slippers, and nobody, absolutely nobody, wants to be last in line. Someone's humming Rhapsody in Blue through clenched teeth. A tap dancer's heel cracks ominously against the radiator. You consider, just for a moment, fleeing to the fire escape to brush your teeth with a snowball and the last shred of your self-respect. But you hold your ground. Survival is a group sport, and today you're on defense. The air is thick with steam, tension, and a potent blend of cheap cologne, lilac talc, and defeat. The bathroom itself is a narrow, slightly haunted affair. 2 battered sinks, 1 ancient clawfoot tub stained the colour of creative bankruptcy, and a single toilet that moans with every flush, as if protesting its role in your daily saga. The mirror is more a suggestion than a surface, chipped around the edges and fogged from generations of existential crises. By the time you reach the sink, your robe is halfway open, and your hair is channeling electrocuted flapper. There's a cold, unspoken truce about personal space. It doesn't exist. So don't bother asking. One girl splashes water with reckless abandon. Another applies rouge like she's erasing evidence. And all of you are practicing the fine art of ignoring the sound of someone sobbing softly into a towel in the corner. It's not personal. It's just Tuesday. You brace for the cold water shock, yelping as you splash your face. It wakes you up faster than a trumpet solo and about as gently. Toothbrushes are passed around like cigarettes, and you silently pray the communal toothpaste isn't mostly talcum powder and hope. Someone coughs delicately, as if auditioning for a role as a dying heiress. You mentally make note to sanitize your lipstick again. The battle for mirror space is waged with silent aggression. You lean in, squint, and do your best to repair the damage from last night's mascara avalanche. Every inch of counter space is fought over, curling irons balance precariously, hairpins like caltrops, perfume bottles doubling as territorial markers. Elbows are weapons. Compliments are currency, but only when used with caution. Love your blush can mean I'm taking your spot the second you blink. The plumbing, as always, is unreliable. The pipes rattle, the faucet sputters, and somewhere deep in the walls you can hear the ghost of Broadway's past weeping softly over your shampoo budget. The hot water is a myth, vanishing after 30 seconds and leaving you to shiver while you curse the showgirls who woke up earlier. Showbiz is a meritocracy, but the bathroom is a brutal survival of the fastest. Just as you're about to perfect your eyeliner, someone shouts, 5 minutes! And panic ripples down the row. Suddenly, the choreography hits a frantic tempo. Towels dropped, curlers snatched, a lipstick cap rolls under the tub, never to be seen again. You pull yourself together as best you can, throw on your robe and fake a smile at your fellow dancers, who look just as ragged and determined as you do. The bathroom empties with the urgency of a Broadway finale. Every girl dashing for her own tiny slice of privacy. You step back into the hallway, cheeks flushed, hair barely tamed, and laugh at the absurdity of it all. Because in this city, in this life, the communal bathroom is where dreams are washed, faces are painted, and legends, at least the exhausted, slightly smudged kind, are born every single morning. You paint your face with pancake makeup thick enough to survive the apocalypse, blending yesterday's mascara with new hope. The room buzzes with gossip and nervous laughter, punctuated by the sharp click of someone sharpening a lip pencil like it's a weapon. Every inch of the dressing room is covered with something: powder, perfume, feathers, panic. Vanity lights flicker overhead, each bulb competing with the others to see which can burn out first. The air is heavy with the sweet smell of cold cream, hairspray and desperation, as 20 girls crowd around a row of mirrors no bigger than your hopes of making it out of the chorus. Your reflection stares back at you, half glamour, half gremlin, all nerves. There's no privacy here, only the shared ritual of transformation. You fight for elbow space as you attack your face with sponges and brushes, a ballet of muscle memory and controlled chaos. Someone's shrieking about a missing eyebrow pencil, another's threatening to borrow your eyeliner just for a second that stretches into the next ice age. You powder your nose, powder your neck, powder anything that might catch a bead of sweat under the hot glare of the footlights. It's a losing battle. By the time you finish one side, the other is already staging a revolt. A veteran showgirl, already in full war paint, leans in to offer unsolicited advice. Less is more, darling. Unless you're ugly, then pile it on. You laugh, because what else can you do? That's Broadway camaraderie for you. Equal parts brutal honesty and borrowed blush. Costumes hang from hooks like a flock of exotic birds, each one shedding sequins and drama in equal measure. The lucky dress, rumoured to bring callbacks and foot rubs, hangs next to the one you swore you'd never wear again after last month's wardrobe malfunction. You fish a rhinestone out of your bra, wonder how long it's been there, and decide not to think too hard about it. All the while, gossip bounces around the room, ricocheting off bottles of nail polish and jars of Pond's. Who's seeing which musician? Who got a telegram from an agent? Who's up for the lead if, God forbid, Nancy sprains her ankle again? You learn more in 5 minutes backstage than you would from a week of tabloids. The rule is simple. If you don't hear a rumour by noon, you probably are the rumour. Your hands tremble a little as you glue on fake lashes, trying not to poke yourself in the eye. Someone's teasing their hair into a gravity-defying sculpture that could double as a weapon. Another girl, new, nervous, all knees and dreams, asks for help pinning her headpiece. You oblige, remembering your own first week, the terror of not knowing which brush was for blush and which was for battle scars. Stage managers pop in and out, barking orders and handing out last-minute notes. There's a constant undertone of urgency. 5 minutes, girls. Places in 5. Panic spikes, and the pace quickens. Someone rips a seam and resorts to safety pins. You check your teeth for lipstick, your armpits for deodorant, your soul for the will to keep going. The sound of the orchestra tuning up trickles in from the wings, a reminder that time waits for no one, not even a chorus line with eyeliner emergencies. You give yourself a final once-over in the mirror. Face, painted, nerves, frayed, costume, mostly fastened. You throw back your shoulders, channel a starlet from the movies and try to believe the magic will hold. You line up with the others, ready to step into the lights. The chatter fades. For a moment, you're all the same. Dreams pinned to your lashes, hope dusted across your cheeks, and panic humming quietly under your ribs. The curtain rises. You take a breath, lift your chin, and step forward, powdered, painted, and for the next few hours, absolutely unstoppable. Dress rehearsal is less about perfection and more about survival. The costumes itch, the shoes don't fit, and the director is on his 5th cigarette of the hour. Someone's tap shoe flies off mid-kick, narrowly missing your left eye, a minor miracle in the world of jazz hands and high stakes. You can always tell it's dress rehearsal day by the combination of mounting panic and the faint aroma of mothballs, sweat, and burnt hair wafting through the backstage corridor. The room is electric with nerves and static cling. You shimmy into a costume last worn by a girl who quit show business to marry a milkman in Queens. It's a size too small, Smells faintly of onions, and you're pretty sure the zipper has already written its resignation letter. The lining scratches at your skin like an irate ferret, and of course, you're wearing the wrong colour tights. Stage left is gridlock. Dancers pinwheeling through quick changes, props flying, and a small dog, part of Act 2, sniffing suspiciously at a bucket labelled confetti. Not for dogs. Your fellow chorus girls are already sweat-soaked, eyes wide, adrenaline surging. Someone's crying quietly in the corner, convinced she'll be fired before the first curtain ever rises. Another is on her fourth bobby pin crisis of the morning, wrestling her headpiece into submission while muttering threats under her breath. The director paces the wings, a human metronome of anxiety, barking orders in between increasingly existential drags on his cigarette. He wants energy, darling, energy, as if any of you have so much as a molecule left. There are 5 minutes to curtain, and everyone is still arguing about whether the big kick line should end in a starburst or a train wreck. Spoiler, it's going to be both. Tech cues are a fever dream. The lighting guy is working with 3 good bulbs and a prayer, and the sound engineer swears he's hearing phantom jazz from last month's production of Guys and Dolls. The orchestra is warming up in the pit, mostly ignoring the fact that half the cast is missing, and someone's cello has gone missing again. You line up for your big number. The sweat running down your back is joined by a trickle of dread. Will your shoes survive another tap sequence, or will they finally give up and launch themselves into the wings? The cue comes. The curtain jerks open like it's been personally insulted. You leap, twirl, land, and somehow your costume stays in one piece. The girl next to you isn't as lucky. Her fringe catches on a passing trombone, and she spends the next minute improvising modern dance while the director howls in horror. Halfway through, someone shouts, "Stop!" A hat has gone missing. The lead's microphone is picking up taxi dispatches from the street. The director's cigarette ash is threatening to ignite his sleeve. You're told to hold positions for what feels like an entire Broadway run, while the stage manager crawls underfoot, searching for the missing hat, the missing dog, and presumably his will to live. After the 20th false start, the cast unravels. Laughter, shrieking, and the occasional unprintable suggestion fill the air. Someone juggles apples from the craft table. Another starts a conga line just to keep warm. Your feet throb. Your patience is hanging by a sequin, and you haven't been this hungry since Prohibition took out the automat's late-night menu. And yet, somewhere between chaos and catastrophe, something magical happens. The music swells, the lights flare, and, against all odds, the whole number comes together for 30 beautiful seconds of accidental synchronicity. You almost believe you're in a real Broadway show and not a 3-ring circus with jazz hands. Then the curtain crashes down. The director sighs the sigh of a man who's seen too much, and everyone collapses in a heap of tulle and hope. Disaster, absolutely. But hey, nobody lost an eye. The dog only peed on the confetti, and for a brief shining moment, you remembered why you love this ridiculous glitter-soaked world. Because on Broadway, perfection is just a rumour. Survival? Now that's showbiz. Backstage, the doorman eases you with the kind of suspicion reserved for people who definitely shouldn't be up this early. You exchange small talk and larger secrets over burnt coffee, both pretending you don't notice the chorus girl in the corner counting out pills like rosary beads. The stage door is Broadway's true confession booth. Everyone passes through it eventually. Stars, chorus girls, trumpet players, producers with wandering hands, and hopeful boys clutching carnations. And right in the middle stands Mr. Donnelly. Hat tipped low, newspaper tucked under one arm, guarding the threshold like a tired bouncer at the gates of heaven. He hands you a chipped mug without asking. The coffee is strong enough to wake the dead and bitter enough to remind you that life has terms and conditions. You take a sip anyway. It burns. You nod like it's medicinal. "You look lively," he says, which in Broadway dialect translates to, "You look like you were hit by a taxi and kept tap dancing." You shrug. "Just resting my eyes for 6 hours." He grunts. Mr. Donnelly has seen everything. He saw Clara faint during the Charleston craze of 23. He saw Eddie the sax man disappear with a costume designer and reappear 2 months later in Chicago with a limp and a new wife. He's watched girls arrive bright-eyed and leave with shadows stitched under their cheekbones. He keeps secrets the way other men keep coins, quietly and in bulk. Behind you, the corridor hums. Stagehands haul scenery like obedient mules. Someone's practicing scales that sound more like arguments, and in the corner near the coat rack, there she is, the chorus girl with the trembling hands, tapping out pills into her palm, with the precision of a bookkeeper balancing accounts. White tablets, tiny promises, you don't stare. No one does. That's the rule. The jazz age runs on two fuels, applause and pharmaceuticals. You lean against the brick wall, the chill seeping through your costume robe. The city hasn't fully woken yet, but Broadway never truly sleeps. There's always someone coming off a late rehearsal, someone sneaking in early to practice, someone trying to outrun yesterday with a fresh line of something stronger than ambition. You lower your voice. Busy night. Mr. Donnelly snorts. Producer came through with a talent scout. Stayed till 2. Talent looked tired. That's how it works. Opportunity wears cologne and arrives after midnight. You take another sip of coffee and try not to think about the way your hands sometimes shake before curtain. The first time someone offered you a little something to take the edge off, it was framed as kindness. Just a sniff. Just a pinch. Doctors still prescribe morphine for nerves. Heroin is sold in pharmacies not too long ago. It's medicine, they say, for coughs, for pain, for exhaustion. And Broadway manufactures exhaustion by the barrel. You watch the girl in the corner swallow her courage in pill form. She exhales like she's just been forgiven. The doorman follows your gaze, then looks away. City eats the fast ones, he mutters. Choose the slow ones. Comforting. A trumpet blares from the pit, sharp and brassy, cutting through the hallway like a warning shot. Somewhere upstairs, a stage manager shouts about misplaced sheet music. The rhythm of the building begins its daily crescendo. You stub out your cigarette and smooth your hair back, trying to look less like someone who's considering chemical assistance and more like someone who has this entirely under control. You flex your fingers. They still obey you. That's a good sign. Mr. Donnelly nudges the sugar tin toward you. Sweeten it, he says. World's bitter enough. You add 2 cubes, maybe 3. For a moment the noise fades into something almost peaceful. The low murmur of backstage life, the scrape of boots, the clink of mugs. You could almost pretend this is ordinary. Just co-workers sharing coffee. Just another morning. But this is Broadway in 1926. Coffee keeps you upright. Cocaine keeps the band lively. Heroin keeps the pain quiet. And the stage door keeps swallowing and releasing you like the tide. You hand back the mug, nod once, and push through into the wings. Because whatever you choose, coffee, courage, or something stronger, the curtain is rising, and you're expected to float. Lunch is optional, but the ritual of popping aspirin and sipping another black coffee isn't. The older girls say it keeps your ankles thin and your hangover manageable. The younger ones just nod and hope nobody notices how little they're actually eating. The diet of a Broadway showgirl is legendary and, frankly, terrifying. Between costume fittings, rehearsals, and a budget that would make a Great Depression banker weep, you quickly learn that food is more of a concept than a reality. At noon, you fish a packet of saltines from your bag, stare at them for a moment, and then return them to their wrapper, maybe later, after the next dance call, after the next emergency. There's a pear on the windowsill growing softer by the minute, but fruit feels extravagant, almost decadent, so you save it for tomorrow, or the next day, or let's be honest, until it's more cider than snack. Instead, you fill your cup, again, with black coffee brewed thick enough to pass as a prop in the next horror show. It coats your stomach, if not your conscience. Someone across the table has a thermos labelled tea that you know, from experience, contains more whiskey than Earl Grey. She winks at you and offers a splash for courage, but you decline. Too early, even for you, even here. Around you, the girls compare tips for surviving on almost nothing. Aspirin for the aches, Vaseline for the shoes, sugar cubes for the blood. The veterans share these wisdoms with the same reverence most people reserve for family recipes or the correct order to enter the subway. There's a hierarchy too. The girls with the longest legs and the sharpest cheekbones always seem to know the best tricks, how to fake a meal with a glass of seltzer, how to sneak bites from the stagehand's lunchbox, how to walk the fine line between looking hungry and looking unwell. Nobody talks about hunger directly. It's the unscripted scene in every matinee. You hear your stomach grumble during a quiet moment, drown it out with a laughter or gossip, or blame it on nerves. You lie about already having lunch or claim you're saving room for dinner, as if dinner will be anything more than stale bread and an apology from your landlord. Between bites, or more accurately, non-bites, you watch the parade of legs and ambition move through the green room. Someone's tearing the crust off a sandwich, eating only the bread because the filling might stain her costume. Another girl is counting calories in her notebook, a neat row of numbers that don't add up to a full meal. Just enough to get through the day, she says, smiling like it's a secret worth keeping. Aspirin is currency. You pop one after the second cup of coffee, less for the headache and more for the ritual. It's supposed to keep the swelling down, help with the bruises, and take the edge off the relentless tap-tap-tapping of heels on wood. Maybe it does. Maybe it's just something to do with your hands besides reaching for food you don't have. Outside, the city moves at a pace that would make any nutritionist faint. Taxis blare, horns honk. The smell of roasting chestnuts wafts through an open window, mocking you with every toasty, caramelized breath. You stare longingly at the bakery across the street, promising yourself a treat after the show. You know you won't go, too tired, too broke, too busy pretending you don't miss the taste of cake. You swirl the last dregs of coffee, let the bitterness linger on your tongue, and brace yourself for the afternoon. You stand up, dizzy but determined. Another aspirin in your pocket, another secret in your smile. On Broadway, survival isn't glamorous. It's caffeine-fueled, aspirin-laced, and always, always hungry. Friendships here are forged in fire, broken by auditions, and stitched back together with borrowed lipstick. Someone's always angling for your spot in the lineup, and you'd better keep one eye open and one hand on your costume rack at all times. On Broadway, sisterhood is a loaded term. Sure, you laugh together, cry together, share cab fare and chewing gum, and sometimes even beds. But the moment someone posts the new call sheet, the whole room tightens like a string about to snap. You scan for your name, exhale if it's there, and silently calculate how many girls you're standing between and the unemployment line. Everyone's smiling too wide. Compliments feel like booby traps. You look so fresh tonight. Means, I hope your shoes are glued to the floor. Whispers run through the dressing room like electrical wires. Someone says the director is thinking about swapping out 2 girls for understudies. Someone else says Sally's high kick is looking weak. There's always a rumour, always an opportunity for disaster, preferably not your own. You become an expert in double meanings and coded glances. I'm so happy for you. Can mean I will sell my soul to get that solo and break a leg. Might as well be a hex. Sabotage is an art form here, painted in shades of plausible deniability. Your costume is missing a strap, must have slipped. Lipstick mysteriously melted. Oops, wrong steamer. Bobby pins in your shoes, or a hem let out a little too far, accidentally dropped powder on the slippery part of the stage. It's all par for the course. If you're lucky, the only thing you lose is a hairnet. If you're unlucky, you're explaining to the director why your tap shoe suddenly squeaks like a dying pigeon. But it's not all cold-blooded competition. The truth is, the best and worst parts of Broadway happen side by side. You trade mascara and murder plots with equal sincerity. The same girl who forgets to remind you about a costume change is the first one to lend you a safety pin when your dress rips open mid-dress rehearsal. You laugh about it later sometimes, over burnt toast and too sweet coffee, the rivalry simmering just beneath the surface, never quite boiling over. You need each other after all, and no one understands this madness except the people living it beside you. Still, you learn to protect your turf. You keep your script close and your understudies closer. Your makeup bag is under lock and key, and your lucky earrings live in your bra until 5 minutes before curtain. You develop a 6th sense for drama brewing behind your back. When a voice goes a little too soft, a mistake a little too convenient, your instincts go on high alert. You never leave your good tights unattended. In this world, it's every girl for herself, except, somehow, also for each other. There's a strange comfort in the chaos. The rivalry keeps you sharp, awake, on your toes, literally and figuratively. You discover parts of yourself you didn't know existed. Grit, cunning, a willingness to fake smile through anything. And just when you think you can't trust a soul, someone hands you a cup of water, wipes a smudge off your cheek, or pulls you into a last-second huddle before the lights go up. You're all in it together, even when you're at each other's throats. The curtain rises, and for a blissful moment it's all erased. The music swells, the audience gasps, and every rivalry blurs into choreography. Under the slights you move as one, step, kick, leap, smile, repeat. Backstage it'll be war again soon, but for now, you're united by the shared terror and glory of show business. In the end, Broadway is less about sabotage and more about survival. The rivalries are fierce, but the friendships, when they last, are unbreakable, stitched together not just with lipstick, but with sweat, secrets, and a stubborn refusal to let go. The show's doctor is always around, dispensing advice and ampules in equal measure. He smells like antiseptic and secrets, and everyone knows the quickest way to a second wind is whatever he's got hidden in his little black bag. He arrives between acts, coattails flapping, his shoes clicking a warning down the corridor. You know he's coming long before you see him, a faint whiff of camphor, a hush in the dressing room, and the sudden shuffle as girls straighten up, rubbing sore ankles and smoothing their hair. His name might be Dr. Fields or Dr. Grant or maybe just Doc. It doesn't matter. On Broadway, the name is unimportant. It's the bag that counts. Inside that bag, everything and nothing. Bandages and smelling salts, certainly. But also vials of something stronger. Morphine for the leg cramps, laudanum for nerves, and for those who can't get through another tap number without shaking, maybe a discreet bottle of cough syrup that would get a pharmacist arrested today. The doctor asks you how you're feeling but doesn't expect honesty. You say fine, and he presses a sugar cube laced with something that tastes suspiciously like courage into your palm. His office is wherever you are, backstage, the green room, sometimes even the fire escape when the air gets too thick. He works by touch and intuition. You present a bruised knee. He produces a cold compress and a joke about last night's poker game. A migraine. He'll mix you a powder, hand you a glass of water, and tell you to think pleasant thoughts. If only pleasant thoughts paid the rent. He's everybody's confessor, part medic, part magician. He listens to confessions at all hours, fears about auditions, aches that don't fade, worries that the shakes will get worse. In the dark, he's the closest thing most girls have to a friend, someone who won't judge your secrets, because he's carrying more than a few of his own. Rumour has it he was once a real doctor. Maybe. Maybe not. On Broadway, everyone reinvents themselves, and nobody checks the paperwork. The advice comes free, but the good stuff costs. Take it easy. Rest when you can. If it hurts to breathe, don't dance tonight. Everyone nods politely, then ignores him completely. The show must go on, after all, and the only thing worse than missing a cue is missing a paycheck. He's discreet. If you're running low on energy, he'll slip you something to perk you up. If you can't sleep, he has a different bottle, a different smile. He treats headaches, heartbreaks, and everything in between with the same brisk efficiency. Sometimes you wonder if he's helping, or just keeping you on your feet until your necks collapse. Either way, you're grateful. There's a price for all these little miracles, but you pay it gladly. Aches that fade, voices that last just long enough to hit the high note, a burst of energy that carries you through the finale. You try not to ask what's in the bottle, and he doesn't offer. Plausible deniability is part of the cure. Once, after a particularly rough night, he found you slumped against the stage door. He crouched down, checked your pulse, and handed you something bitter. "Careful," he said. "Broadway has a taste for blood." You laughed then, because it was easier than crying. Sometimes it still is. And so the doctor remains, hovering at the edge of every show, every headache, every panic attack, a shadow in the wings and a steady hand at your elbow. He keeps you moving when your body says stop, and listening to his advice you learn a truth as old as the stage. Sometimes survival is about just getting through the next number. Curtain up, aches dulled, spirits steadied. You step out smiling. The show and the doctor go on. Every step you take is scored by the relentless energy of a live jazz band. The drums are your heartbeat, the horns your alarm clock, and somewhere in the distance someone's always singing the blues, usually off-key and always a little too close to home. This isn't just a musical, it's a marathon. The walls of the theatre seem to hum with leftover notes from last night's big number. The sound seeps into your bones and never really leaves, even when you're miles away. In the boarding house, in the bath, walking through the freezing lobby in slippers and shame, the rhythm is with you. Tap your foot while waiting for the kettle to boil? There's syncopation for that. Sneeze during costume changes? Someone behind you will harmonise. Your entire life becomes a duet with chaos. The band is the show's beating heart, tucked into the pit like a caffeinated secret. The pianist has the fingers of a magician and the sleep schedule of a long-haul trucker. The trumpet player is everyone's enemy until the solo, and then he's a god. You learn to recognise each member's mood by the way they tune their instruments sluggish. The clarinet's had a bad day. Furious. The snare will take it out on your eardrums. During rehearsals, the music starts before you do. Drums rattle through your nerves as you try to remember choreography and keep your hat from falling into the orchestra. Sometimes you're in sync with the beat, riding the high like a feather on a breeze. Other times, you're trailing behind, ankle deep in the swing, cursing the day syncopation was invented. You miss a step, the sax lets out a mocking trill, and you're sure the whole band is in on the joke. Jazz in 1926 isn't background noise, it's the air. It's sweat on your brow, swing in your hips, and an excuse for the director's creative breakdowns. Even backstage, someone is humming a standard, or pounding out a ragtime rhythm on a dressing table. Every corridor is an echo chamber. If there's silence, check for casualties. Sometimes you crave peace. Maybe just 5 minutes without a horn blaring or a drummer practicing rim shots with your nerves. But quiet isn't a Broadway luxury. In its absence, you find grit. You march to the relentless tempo of applause, jeers, and that one clarinetist who won't stop warming up in the bathroom. It's never easy, but it's honest. And then, sometimes the magic strikes. You're out of breath. Halfway through a routine you thought would kill you, when the band suddenly locks in. The music carries you. You're not just keeping up, you're flying. Every snare hit feels like encouragement. Every sax riff a secret handshake. For a brief moment, the sweat, the pain, the rivalry, all of it vanishes, and you're part of something bigger. The music isn't just accompaniment, it's your lifeline. Off stage, jazz chases you down the city streets. The clubs are full of it, the radios pump it, even the taxis honk in a syncopated rhythm that feels almost deliberate. The soundtrack never stops. You lie in bed at night and still hear the faint echo of a hi-hat, the memory of a trumpet's sweet, sour wail. On the hard nights, when your feet ache and your spirit sags, the band plays you out. The drummer's steady beat is a reminder that the show keeps moving. The jazz, like Broadway itself, never sleeps. It might not always sound like hope, but it's proof you're still in the game, still standing, still swinging, still taking every cue, even the wrong ones. And that's how you know you're home, in the relentless, ridiculous, beautiful noise of it all, jazz, grit, and the eternal soundtrack of a showgirl's life. Quick changes are less about style and more about acrobatics. You yank on a sequined dress, while 3 hands zip, button and tug, praying you don't accidentally flash the orchestra. Dignity is a luxury item here. Backstage, the real drama isn't on the stage, it's in the wings, behind a battered curtain, where performers become contortionists and wardrobe assistants turn into pit crew champions. Every showgirl knows the choreography of a quick change. Exit stage left, duck behind the prop tree, and pray to every saint in the Broadway canon that you can get out of tap shoes and into high heels before the overture ends. Someone throws you a costume from the laundry rack. It's usually the right size. Usually. There's an art to undressing while running. One hand clutching your slip, the other reaching for a headpiece as it's thrust at you with all the tenderness of a relay baton. Hairpins fly, feathers molt, and for one terrifying moment, you find yourself wearing your next scene's hat but still sporting your previous number's bloomers. The wardrobe mistress has a glare that could melt sequins, and she's seen everything. "You're on in 30 seconds, she hisses, hands deftly yanking your zipper with a combination of skill and vengeance honed by decades of backstage chaos. The changing area is a battlefield, rows of costumes hanging like soldiers ready for duty, shoes sorted, in theory, by size, accessories in tangled piles that defy both logic and physics. The air's heavy with powder and the collective anxiety of women trying to navigate a space built for 4 with an occupancy of 14. It's a miracle there aren't more casualties. In the confusion, someone's elbow lands in your eye. Someone else's lipstick is now on your collarbone. No time to fix it. Show must go on. Every button is a potential enemy. Some pop, some refuse to close, some mysteriously vanish entirely between acts. Safety pins are your most trusted allies, hidden in the seams of every costume, slipped into bras and garter belts just in case. There's nothing quite like the cold metal of a pin pressed desperately into a waistband as the conductor raises his baton. You learn to move with the confidence of a magician performing sleight of hand. Spin, zip, tuck, smile, dash. Occasionally, a true catastrophe strikes. A seam rips in half with a sound that echoes above the orchestra. Your left heel gets stuck in a hem. The dress you're about to wear was last used in a rain number and is still suspiciously damp. In these moments, you're grateful for adrenaline, muscle memory, and the ability to fake composure. The audience never sees the panic, only the shimmer and poise you've practiced since your very first dance class. There's a unique kind of intimacy to the quick change, hands helping hands, someone whispering encouragement as they untangle your necklace or adjust your straps. In these 30-second windows, rivalry is suspended. Everyone's just trying to get you out there, clothed, glittering, and relatively upright. You hit your mark as the lights come up, heart pounding, hair a little wild, costume secure by the grace of fast fingers and hope. The applause masks the chaos left in your wake. Out there, you're a vision of glamour. Back here, you're a survivor of another backstage battle. Later, after the show, you'll find stray rhinestones in your underwear, feathers in your hair, and a trail of bobby pins marking your route from wings to spotlight. You'll laugh about the night you made it on stage with 2 left shoes, or the time your skirt unzipped during the Charleston but you kept kicking anyway. Because on Broadway, the only thing more dangerous than a quick change is being caught without one. And dignity? That's for the audience. You're here to make magic, one wardrobe malfunction at a time. You weren't looking for a habit, but Broadway has a way of finding your weaknesses. The heroin girls keep their secrets in powder puffs and perfume bottles, whispering promises of euphoria to anyone desperate enough to listen. It never starts with a grand declaration. No one stands center stage and announces, "Tonight I ruin my life." It begins backstage, between numbers, when your feet are blistered, your ribs ache from shallow breathing, and the applause you chased all evening already feels like it belonged to someone else. A friend, soft-voiced, perfectly lined lips, leans in and says, "It helps, just a touch," takes the edge off. In 1920s New York, narcotics aren't yet the shadowy villains they'll become. Morphine has been prescribed for decades. Heroin was once sold as a cough remedy. Doctors still carry it. Pharmacies still dispense it. It arrives in small envelopes, tiny glass vials, or folded paper twists passed hand to hand like secrets. It feels less like rebellion and more like medicine with better marketing. You tell yourself it's for the pain, and there is pain. Your arches throb like they're sending telegrams. Your spine protests every high kick. Your nerves rattle from too much caffeine and too little sleep. Broadway demands sparkle at any cost, and you're paying in installments. So when the powder is offered, white, innocent looking, tucked inside a compact, you don't see ruin. You see relief. Let's talk about the first time. It's in a dressing room heavy with steam and gossip. The heroine girls don't look like villains. They look rested, calm, almost luminous. One of them laughs at something trivial, her shoulders loose, her smile unbothered by the chaos around her. She catches you watching. "Just makes the music softer," she says. "You don't ask for details. Details make it real." The first rush is not fireworks. It's warmth. a soft unfurling inside your chest. The ache in your ankles recedes like a polite tide. The panic that usually hums under your skin quiets. The jazz outside the door becomes velvet instead of thunder. You feel, for a brief and treacherous moment, invincible. It's like someone turned the volume down on the world and up on you. You step on stage that night lighter than air. Every movement flows. The smile is effortless. You're not fighting your body, you are floating above it. The audience claps and you think, maybe this is the secret. Maybe everyone knows something I just learned. But euphoria is a poor long-term roommate. The next morning the warmth is gone. In its place is a dull heaviness, a whisper of something missing. Your body, which so eagerly embraced the quiet, now notices the noise more sharply. The ache returns, sharper for having been absent. The anxiety creeps back in, tapping its foot impatiently. You remember how easy it felt, and that's how the connection tightens, not dramatically, not all at once, but thread by thread. Soon the powder isn't for pain, it's for nerves before curtain. Then it's for sleep after the show. Then it's for getting out of bed at all. You begin to schedule your life around little folded papers. The heroin girls become less like a clique and more like a lifeline. There are signs, of course. Weight drops too quickly. Eyes grow distant. Someone misses a cue. Another disappears for a week and returns pale, trembling, swearing she's just tired. The doctor's bag grows heavier. The doorman's gaze grows longer. But in the moment, all you know is that Broadway's relentless. The music doesn't stop. The costumes don't loosen. The audience doesn't forgive. And heroin, soft, quiet, promising, feels like the only thing asking nothing from you in return, until it does. You start to notice that the warmth comes slower. You need a little more. The euphoria feels thinner, like watered-down gin. The relief lasts minutes instead of hours. The space between doses feels wider, colder. Still, when someone whispers, "You okay?" you nod. You weren't looking for a habit. You were looking for rest, for quiet, for a way to keep dancing when your body begged you to stop. And Broadway, generous as ever, handed you something that felt like mercy, wrapped in powder and applause. Some nights the music drowns out the ache in your bones. Other nights, every note is a reminder of what's missing. The warmth of the drug, the illusion of invincibility, and the hope that tomorrow might actually be easier. Withdrawal doesn't announce itself politely. It doesn't knock. It seeps in. You wake before dawn, not from rest, but from restlessness. Your legs twitch like they're still mid-routine. Your skin feels too tight, too aware of the air brushing against it. There's a chill in your bones that no blanket seems to fix. The radiator hisses in the corner, but it might as well be snowing inside your ribs. You tell yourself it's just exhaustion, just nerves, just Broadway being Broadway. But by the time you reach the theatre, your hands are trembling in a way that has nothing to do with stage fright. The coffee doesn't help. It only sharpens the edges. Every sound feels louder. The orchestra warming up is no longer velvet, it's sandpaper. The tap of heels on wood lands directly in your spine. Let's talk about rehearsal. You line up with the other girls, shoulders back, chin lifted. The director counts off. 1, 2, 3. And your body responds half a beat late. Your calves burn. Not the usual pleasant burn of the hard work, but something electric, jittery. You're hyper-aware of every joint. Your knees feel hollow. Your stomach churns like it's auditioning for a storm. You smile anyway. Because on Broadway, pain is a background extra. It doesn't get a credit. Between numbers, you retreat to the wings, pressing your back against the cool brick wall. Sweat prickles along your hairline. Your heart pounds, then flutters, then pounds again. Someone laughs nearby and it sounds too bright, too sharp. You want to snap at them. You want to cry. Instead, you adjust your headpiece and nod like everything is fine. The heroin used to soften all of this. It wrapped the world in gauze. Without it, everything feels raw, too bright, too loud, too much. By curtain, the ache has deepened. It's not just in your muscles now, it's everywhere. A phantom pain, like your body is mourning something invisible. Your skin crawls, your thoughts loop. You consider slipping away, finding one of the girls who still carries a little folded Mercy in her compact. But you don't. Maybe you can make it through one more show. The music starts. The first number is the worst. Your timing wobbles. Your breath comes shallow. Each kick feels like lifting a sandbag. The audience claps, unaware that your bones are staging a protest. The smile on your face feels stapled there. Halfway through the routine, something shifts. Adrenaline. It's not euphoria. It's not warmth. It's survival. Your body, stubborn and furious, decides it will not collapse in front of a sold-out house. The drums pound, you match them, the horns blare, you lift your chin higher. The pain doesn't vanish, but it moves to the background, like a heckler you refuse to acknowledge. You dance. You dance through the chills, through the nausea, through the hollow ache that feels like it might swallow you whole. You focus on the count. 5, 6, 7, 8. On the girl to your left. On the stage lights burning hot enough to cauterize doubt. There is something brutal and beautiful about this moment. You're doing it without the crutch. It doesn't feel triumphant. It feels hard. It feels ugly. It feels like dragging yourself uphill in heels. But you're still moving. Backstage after the number, you collapse onto a crate, breathing hard. Someone hands you water. Someone else whispers, "You okay?" You nod, because explaining would take too much energy. The phantom pain lingers. It will linger tomorrow, and maybe the day after that. It will tempt you with memory, the warmth, the ease, the soft blur of it all. But tonight you dance through it. And on Broadway, sometimes that's the only victory you get. Not perfection, not applause, but the quiet, stubborn fact that you showed up anyway. Your mother says she came to the city to see you shine, but you know she's here to remind you of all the things you aren't, and to quietly borrow your rent money. Every showgirl needs a villain, and sometimes she's just sitting in the third row, applauding too loudly. There's no dressing room on Broadway big enough to hide from a stage mother. She makes her entrance unannounced, arms full of city bags, perfume trailing behind like an accusation. She's come to help, she says, but within minutes she's rearranging your makeup table, judging your lipstick choices and declaring every other girl too thin, too tall, or too fast. There's a compliment in there somewhere if you have the patience to excavate it. Mostly, though, it's a litany of suggestions. How to project, how to pose, how to be the daughter she wishes she'd been. She sits in on rehearsals, fanning herself dramatically, offering feedback that is equal parts useful and demoralizing. You're holding your shoulders too high. Don't let that girl outshine you. Smile, even when it hurts. You nod, grind your teeth, and imagine the Broadway lights flickering out one by one until all that's left is a blessed maternal silence. But that never happens. Not in this life. After the show, she sweeps into your boarding house, dropping hints about dinner and debts. Her eyes flicker around your tiny room, taking silent inventory. The chipped teacup, the worn tap shoes, the stack of overdue bills tucked under your pillow. She asks about your diet, your friends, your love life, your career prospects, all in the tone of someone who is pretty sure she knows better and is only waiting for you to admit it. Every visit comes with a performance review. "You are wonderful, darling," she'll say, "but maybe you should have smiled more in the second act. The girl in the red dress was getting all the attention. You've heard it 1,000 times, in 1,000 variations. It's supposed to motivate you. Sometimes it almost does. More often, it leaves you feeling like you're forever chasing a standing ovation you'll never hear. There are good moments, of course. She'll press a warm hand to your cheek, her eyes softening for a second, and tell you she's proud. Really, truly proud. But the next morning it's back to business. She needs a loan, just something to tide her over until the end of the month. Or maybe she needs to borrow your best coat for her cousin's wedding. You know you'll never see it again. Her visits always coincide with your worst days. She shows up when your name is misspelled in the program, when you're understudying for the 5th show in a row, when your costume splits during a quick change, and you end up in front of a full house in your slip. She's there, somehow, always in the front row, clapping just a hair too late, her smile a little too bright. Some of the girls envy you. At least your mother comes to see you, they say. Mine thinks Broadway's a step above sin. You nod, because you know it's true. The absence of love is one kind of ache. The constant pressure of it is another. On rare nights, after a show that goes well, you and your mother share a cab uptown. She tells stories of her own lost dreams, auditions she never attended, songs she never sang, cities she never saw. In those moments, the two of you are just women riding through the city, lit up by hope and disappointment in equal measure. But by morning, it's back to the same old script. She leaves with a hug, a warning, and a purse a little heavier from your tip money. You're left with the echo of her advice, the shadow of her expectations, and the certainty that, on Broadway, some demons don't haunt you from the wings, they sit right in the third row waiting for you to take your bow. Getting dressed is part athletic event, part act of defiance. You squeeze into dresses stitched for someone 3 inches shorter, pin your hair into submission, and pray that your shoes last through the final kick line. Backstage, the wardrobe rack is less a closet and more a battleground. Rows of frocks in impossible shades, lime green, traffic cone orange, and that one violently sparkly blue reserved for soloists, beckon you with promises of stardom and the threat of wardrobe malfunction. Ribbons tangle around sequins, feathers molt on cue. Somewhere a chorus girl is swearing softly as she attempts to zip herself into a dress designed by an optimist, with no sense of physics or mercy. The ritual of dressing for the stage is a group sport. You wriggle into your costume while 2 friends wrestle with the back buttons. Another shimmies your hips into a beaded skirt so snug it could double as a tourniquet. A third yanks on your shoes, then crosses herself as she fastens the delicate straps, knowing all too well what broken heels have done to better dancers than you. By the time you're dressed, your hair is shellacked into a helmet of glossy curls, and your confidence is stitched in as tight as your bodice. Fashion in the jazz age is about movement and spectacle. Fringes everywhere, fluttering with each shimmy, amplifying every twist of your hips. When you dance, the hemline becomes a blur, a flash of light, a warning to anyone standing too close. Feathers sprout from headbands, drift from capes, and sometimes end up stuck to your upper lip just before you step into the spotlight. Nothing says glamour like coughing up a plume halfway through a number. Then there are the shoes. Oh, the shoes. Each pair is equal parts hope and hazard. The sensible ones are plain, and so of course get chosen last. The prettiest are designed to last a single show, and even that's a gamble. Heels snap, soles flap. Blisters bloom in constellations across your feet. You tape, pad and stuff, and just hope your feet will forgive you. For the first 2 numbers, your toes go numb. By the finale, you don't even notice. You're too busy praying for grace and gravity to stay on speaking terms. Your hair is a problem to be solved daily. Marcel waves require the patience of a saint and the skill of a magician. Pin curls demand discipline. Headbands cut off circulation but must not slip, not when a stray feather could torpedo a kick line. Hairspray fogs the air, combs snap. The bathroom mirror is a battlefield of bobby pins and expletives. Despite the chaos, there's a wild kind of joy in the process. Dressing with the other girls, you trade gossip and lipstick, swap stories of fashion victories and disasters. Someone tells the tale of a skirt that fell off mid-number, she kept dancing. Someone else remembers the time her hem got tangled in the trombone section. She still has nightmares about brass instruments. You laugh, because what else can you do? The audience will see only the final effect. A sea of shimmering girls, radiant and untouchable. But behind the glamour, fashion is armour. Each bead, each feather, each too-tight shoe is a badge of survival. You wear your bruises like accessories, and your blisters like proof of courage. You strut out into the lights head high, not because you feel beautiful, but because you've survived the gauntlet. Tonight your dress holds, your shoes stay upright, and your hair, miracle of miracles, remains intact until the curtain falls. When it's all over, you'll peel off the glamour, massage your aching feet, and sweep a trail of feathers from your pillow. And tomorrow you'll do it all again, one rhinestone at a time. Because on Broadway, fashion is less about looking perfect and more about looking fearless, even if your shoes are held together by hope and a prayer. Off stage, the real performance begins. Speakeasies, basement parties, and rooftop rendezvous, all of them crawling with critics, fans, and men who smell like gin and broken promises. Once the curtain falls, the night doesn't end. It simply shifts venues. You and the girl slip out of costume and into scandalously short dresses, swapping sequins for silk and hope for bravado. Hair slicked, lips painted, you blend into the pulsing chaos of the city's forbidden after hours. If Broadway backstage is a battlefield, the nightlife is a circus, one where everyone's juggling lies, ambition, and the desperate need to be seen. You step into a speakeasy, and the noise hits like a cymbal crash. Glasses clink, jazz thunders from a corner band, and every laugh is just a little too loud. There's a password to get in, but once you're past the door, anything goes. Bootleggers mingle with Broadway's brightest, flappers with Wall Street's finest, and no one is who they claim to be. You tell a writer you're understudying the lead. You tell a stranger you're the lead. Who can check? In the smoky low light, a lie is just another accessory. Flirting is sport, and everyone's on the field. A producer offers to buy you champagne for luck, darling, for luck. But you know better than to let his hand wander past your elbow. Agents pass business cards with promises that melt faster than the ice in your glass. The city's critics lurk in the shadows, listening for gossip, ready to print rumours by breakfast. Every compliment has a price, and every favour comes with an invisible string. Sometimes you dance for fun, sometimes for show, sometimes to prove you're the one having the best time in the room. It's all part of the masquerade. Your laugh gets bigger, your stories get bolder. The other girls watch, play along, compete. There's a silent contest for whose shoes will be kicked off first, for whose dance card will fill the fastest, for who can snag the most envious glances. Allies and rivals change by the hour, usually over the course of a single cocktail. But the city is a snake pit, and for every genuine friend there are a dozen fakers. You spot them by their perfect posture and their too smooth talk. They're always just in town for a night, always know someone important, always quick to remind you of what they could do for your career. If only you played along. You keep your purse close, your wits closer, and try not to wake up in the morning with regrets, or worse, an empty wallet and no memory of the ride home. Yet, even with the hazards, there's magic in the chaos. Sometimes, at 3 a.m. on a rooftop in Hell's Kitchen, you find yourself sharing secrets with another girl whose mascara is just as smudged as yours. You laugh about the worst audition of your life, toast the disasters, and promise again to take care of each other no matter what. Some of these friendships last only as long as the night. Others, miraculously, survive. You slip back into your boarding house just before dawn, shoes in hand, hair mussed, and ears still ringing from the jazz and laughter. The city is quieter now, the bravado worn away, and you're left with the truth. Off stage, everyone's pretending. Some are faking confidence, some are faking innocence, and a lucky few are faking sleep as the sun rises. Tomorrow the cycle repeats, but for tonight, you navigated the wild, glittering maze of Broadway's social scene, outdanced the fakers, outsmiled the critics, and maybe, just maybe, found someone real among the crowd of ghosts and gin-soaked dreamers. Prohibition is in full swing, but you know someone who knows someone, and suddenly there's a gin bottle in every dressing room. The police raid is part of the nightly entertainment, and you learn quickly how to hide both your flask and your dignity. Officially, alcohol is illegal. Unofficially, it's the most reliable supporting actor in your life. The bottle usually appears between the 2nd and 3rd numbers, tucked into a hat box or disguised inside a prop teapot labelled for realism. Someone unscrews the cap, the sharp scent of juniper and poor decision-making filling the air. You take a quick sip, not enough to wobble, just enough to sand down the edges of the day. The gin tastes like regret filtered through a radiator, but it does the job. Let's talk about bathtub gin. It's rarely made in an actual bathtub, though you've heard stories. More often, it's industrial alcohol doctored with berries, sugar, and hope. Sometimes it's smooth. Sometimes it burns like it's actively reconsidering your life choices. You never ask too many questions. You've learned that curiosity is for sober people with savings accounts. Backstage, someone's always the designated lookout. A stagehand near the alley door, a chorus girl stationed by the window. If the wrong knock comes, 3 sharp raps instead of 2 lazy ones, the bottle disappears faster than a leading man with unpaid debts. Gin down the sink. Flask into a costume trunk. Evidence swallowed with alarming enthusiasm. The raids aren't constant, but they're common enough to keep everyone slightly twitchy. The first time it happens, you're mid-laugh, perched on a crate when the stage door slams open. Boots on wood, voices sharp and official. The dressing room transforms instantly. Bottles vanish. Girls sit up straight. Someone starts loudly discussing Shakespeare, as if that will cleanse the air of juniper. You stand, heart thudding harder than the drums in Act 2. The officers sweep through with the bored menace of men who know they'll find something eventually. They open trunks, peer under tables. One of them lifts a feathered headdress and snorts. Looks like a bird exploded in here. You smile sweetly. It's fashion. They don't find much that night, just a half-empty bottle hidden in a prop piano. The pianist takes the blame. He always does. The show must go on after all, and a fine is cheaper than a cancellation. After they leave, the tension cracks into laughter. Someone produces another bottle from somewhere anatomically improbable. The band strikes up a tune, defiant and slightly off-key. You drink to the absurdity of it all. Because prohibition isn't about sobriety, it's about performance. The city pretends to be virtuous. Politicians make speeches. Newspapers scold. Meanwhile, speakeasies multiply like rabbits in pinstripe suits. Broadway thrives on contradiction. You're expected to sparkle on stage and behave off it. To be glamorous but moral. Wild but respectable. It's exhausting. The gin helps. It smooths over awkward propositions from producers. It dulls the sting of a bad review. It turns rivalries into temporary alliances. For a few hours it makes the world feel less like a test you're failing. But it's a slippery comfort. Some nights you drink just enough to laugh louder. Other nights you drink enough to forget the name of the man who's buying. You've seen girls stumble into rehearsals with eyes too bright and hands too unsteady. You've seen friendships dissolve in spilled liquor and shouted secrets. And yet, the bottle keeps circulating. Because in 1926, in a city that outlawed pleasure but couldn't extinguish it, bathtub gin becomes a small rebellion. A shared wink at the hypocrisy of it all. Tonight you tuck a tiny flask into your garter just in case. Not because you need it, just because it's better to have options. The orchestra tunes up. The lights warm. Somewhere in the alley a siren wails. You step into the spotlight, sober enough to dance, bold enough to risk it. In the jazz age, survival isn't dry, it's discreet. Love in this world is a contact sport. You make friends fast, lose them faster, and sometimes end the night with a shiner, a new friend, or both. The only thing more common than broken hearts are broken contracts. Broadway's emotional landscape is rougher than the stage floor after a tap number. The moment you join a show, you're thrown into a whirlwind of alliances, rivalries, late-night confessions, and spectacular falling outs. There's a unique kind of intimacy that comes from changing in the same cramped dressing room, sharing eyeliner and catching someone's tears before they hit the powder. You trust quickly here, not out of innocence, but necessity. You need someone to watch your bag during auditions, someone to run lines with at midnight, someone to split a cab with when the city feels too big and you feel too small. And yet, the bonds you form are often as fragile as a glass slipper at a Charleston contest. Your best friend on Monday is your competition by Wednesday. There's always a new girl in town, a fresher face, a higher kick, a louder laugh at the producer's jokes. The sting of betrayal on Broadway is its own genre of heartbreak, sudden, public, and usually involving someone borrowing your favourite lipstick without asking. Still, for every friendship that crashes and burns, another is forged in the fire. You find yourself walking arm in arm with a girl you once considered a rival, laughing about a wardrobe malfunction or the world's worst director. Solidarity grows in the stranger soil, shared humiliation, mutual terror, the knowledge that you both survive the same opening night disaster. Friendships are as dramatic as the roles you play. Big gestures, loud apologies, letters slipped under doors, flowers stolen from the stage manager's desk. Love, when it happens, is rarely simple. There are stage door Johnnies waiting with cheap bouquets and expensive promises, jazz musicians with midnight eyes and wandering fingers, producers who call you doll and mean it as both compliment and currency. Sometimes you fall hard for someone in the cast, only to discover they've fallen just as hard for someone else, possibly two someones, depending on the after-party. You learn the difference between love and infatuation the same way you learn a dance number, by falling, repeatedly, until you get it right, or decide it isn't worth the blisters. Fistfights aren't always literal, but you'd be surprised how often things come to blows. A snide remark, a stolen solo, an accusation whispered a little too loudly. Tempers flare, especially after a rough rehearsal or a bad review. It's nothing a bag of ice and a well-timed joke can't mend, usually. The bruises fade, the stories linger. Remember when you punched Sally in the nose? Someone will tease. She thanked me for straightening it, you reply. Laughter fills the gaps left by pride. Contracts, on the other hand, break quietly. One day, someone's gone. Their name scrubbed from the call sheet, their costume packed away. Maybe they found a better show. Maybe they didn't find anything at all. You learn not to ask too many questions. On Broadway, goodbyes are casual and frequent. If you let every exit break your heart, there'd be nothing left but glitter and regrets. And through it all, you keep showing up. You fight, you fall, you forgive, you repeat. Because this world, for all its bruises and betrayals, offers moments of connection so pure they could light the whole city. You hug hard, love fast, and sometimes, in the hush before curtain, you look at the girl beside you and think, at least we're in this madness together. Tomorrow the alliances might shift, the contracts might crumble, but tonight you have your friends, your enemies, and a 1,000-watt smile. On Broadway, that's more than enough. When the noise is too much, you sneak onto the fire escape, clutching your knees and watching the city blur beneath you. The stars are barely visible, but they're yours for a few precious private minutes. You press your cheek against the cool metal and breathe in the sharp, almost medicinal scent of rain on rust. For once, you're not worrying about ripped tights, missed cues, or whether someone borrowed your favourite lipstick again. You're just you. No stage name, no borrowed feathers, no one to please but the night itself. The air is thick with the city's heat and secrets, carrying the distant thump of jazz from some all-night club down the block, and the occasional shout from a cabbie who's lost his patience, or maybe just his fare. Below, the city moves like a living thing, restless, endless, impossible to contain. Taxi headlights sweep down the avenue in crooked golden lines. Neon signs buzz their promises in pinks and blues. Cocktails, dancing, girls, girls, girls. You watch the glow flicker and fade on wet pavement, every light a small reminder that you're one of millions, trying to outshine the dark for just a little while. This is your sanctuary, the only place that feels separate from the crush of bodies, the swirl of gossip and the endless, blinding push to always be on. Here, the city's roar becomes a distant hush, and your heartbeat slows to something like normal. You pull your knees closer, hug your shins, and let yourself sink into the rhythm of the night. Sometimes a breeze stirs, tugging at the hem of your robe or the edges of your memories. You let your mind wander to home, to the future, to nowhere at all. Occasionally you're joined by another girl, silent, barefoot, her own thoughts keeping her company. You don't always speak. Sometimes you just sit side by side, two shadows high above the chaos, sharing the rarest thing Broadway has to offer, quiet. Maybe she offers you a cigarette. Maybe you offer her the last bite of an apple pilfered from craft services. You both listen to the faint song of a saxophone echoing up from the street, and it's enough. No words needed. The fire escape itself is hardly glamorous. The paint is chipped, the bolts rattle, and the steps are cold and unforgiving. But it's real. A place nobody's trying to sell you a dream or hand you a line. Out here, under the city sky, you remember there's more to life than applause and paychecks. You're allowed, if only for a moment, to be a person instead of a performance. You count your blessings quietly, a safe place to sit, a skyline that feels like your own, and a little bit of space to breathe. Sometimes you close your eyes and imagine you're somewhere else. A farm in Kansas, a villa in France. A sandy beach with no blaring horns, no scripts, no heels. But you always open your eyes and look back at the city, because it's yours too. The mess, the beauty, the noise, the wild hope of it all. Eventually the night grows heavy, and you know you can't stay out here forever. The city calls you back, the lights, the laughter, the distant trill of someone's bad attempt at ain't misbehaving. You stand, shake the pins and tiredness from your limbs, and give the skyline one last lingering look. The stars are still there, faint, flickering, but stubborn, just like you. You slip back inside, closing the window gently behind you, carrying the hush of the city with you like a secret tucked in your pocket. For a few moments you are just a girl in the dark, not a showgirl, not a star, not anyone's hero or rival. And sometimes that's the only escape you need to survive another day on Broadway. There's nothing like the rush when the curtain rises and the crowd gasps. For a few minutes you're someone else, famous, flawless, free. But the hunger for applause is a trap, and it's never quite enough to quiet the noise inside. Applause is the currency of Broadway, and every showgirl is hungry for it. You live for that moment when the orchestra swells, the lights burn hot, and you step into the glow to find hundreds of faces leaning forward, hungry for something only you can give. Their eyes are hungry too, hungry for escape, for delight, for a glimpse of magic in the middle of a weekday night. For those few golden minutes, you give them everything. Your smile, your sweat, the ache in your back, and the secret doubts you bury under layers of powder and paint. The audience is an unpredictable beast. Some nights they're generous, roaring with laughter, tossing bouquets, or more likely just polite applause, at the foot of the stage. Other nights they're distracted, restless, coughing, checking watches, whispering in the darkness about things that have nothing to do with you. You learn not to take it personally, but you always do. Each ovation is both validation and addiction, the approval you crave, the fuel that keeps you dancing through blisters and bruises. It's easy to start chasing the high. You perform for your fellow dancers, for the director, for the stage hands peeking through the curtains, but mostly you perform for the faceless sea beyond the footlights. You wonder who they are. Tired office workers, honeymooners, lost souls in need of a story. Do they see you, really see you, or just the glitter and the grin? Some nights you catch someone's eye in the front row, a kid with their chin in their hands, an old man dabbing his eyes, a woman who looks like she remembers every heartbreak you're pretending to dance away. And you try to fill them up. But the funny thing is, when you bow and the lights come up, it's your own emptiness that echoes loudest. After the show, the audience dissolves into the night. They'll go home and tell someone about the girl in the green dress, or the comic who stole the show, or the number where everyone kicked so high it looked like flight. You return to the wings, strip off your costume, and listen to the applause fading in the walls. For them, the story's over. For you, the need lingers. The hunger remains. You hear veterans talk about chasing the applause. It never fills you. Not really. It's sweet, then gone. You go back out the next night and the next, chasing a round of clapping hands that fades too quickly. The emptiness is part of the magic. A little ache that keeps you hungry, makes every night feel like a new audition, a new chance to be seen, to be loved, to be more than just another face in the lineup. Sometimes the applause is enough to hush the doubts. Sometimes you find yourself smiling for real, lost in the lights, convinced that tonight, at least, you were everything they hoped you'd be. Other times, you bow and wonder if anyone out there understood what you risked just to stand on that stage. But even when it isn't enough, even when the noise inside is louder than anything the audience can give, You step out and do it all again. Because hope is stubborn, hunger is relentless, and the promise of applause, no matter how fleeting, has a way of keeping you alive in a world that never really stops asking for more. And so, you chase it, night after night, not just for them, but for you. Because sometimes, the only way to quiet the noise is to let yourself be swept up in the sound of hands meeting hands, hoping the echo will last just a little longer this time. The stage is chaos disguised as choreography. Someone sprains an ankle, the scenery collapses, a trumpet player passes out mid-solo. You just keep smiling and tapping, because that's what you're paid for, at least until payday. No one warns you how much of Broadway is held together by willpower, bobby pins, and lies. From the audience, it all looks seamless. A glittering spectacle, a perfect machine of music and movement. But backstage, it's another story, more slapstick than Swan Lake, with every show perched on the edge of total collapse. Let's start with injuries. You get used to pain quickly. Ankles twist, knees buckle, and toes become so bruised they look like you borrowed them from a 19th century coal miner. But if you're breathing, you're performing. There's a chorus line mantra. Blood doesn't show on sequins, so you tape, ice, pop an aspirin, and go on stage anyway. There's no sick day for the girl in the third row, and nobody cares how you feel if the curtain doesn't rise. Then there's the set, the silent saboteur. It wobbles, it creaks, it sheds bits of paint and dignity with every scene change. Some nights, the revolving door jams and spits you out facing the wrong direction. Other nights, the painted backdrop decides it's had enough and swan dives into the orchestra pit. There's a story for every scar. The girl who tripped over the rolling bench and landed in the conductor's lap. The time the chandelier missed the lead by inches. The infamous umbrella malfunction that left the front row wetter than a speakeasy on raid night. And always, the musicians. The band in the pit is a cast all its own. Underappreciated, unpredictable, and occasionally unconscious. You get used to adjusting mid-song when the trumpet player slumps over, or the pianist starts improvising because someone swapped the sheet music for last week's grocery list. At least once a month, someone's instrument is held together with chewing gum and prayer. Disaster comes in all shapes and sizes, and you learn to expect the unexpected. Microphones cut out during solos. The light crew goes rogue, leaving you spotlighted in a scene you're not even in. A mouse scurries across the stage mid-kick line, upstaging the entire cast. You keep dancing, you keep smiling, because the show doesn't care if your heel snaps, your voice cracks, or your dignity takes a sabbatical. The audience is paid for magic, and you're the magician, even if you're pulling rabbits out of hats that are on fire. The panic is real, but never lasts. There's a kind of giddy energy in surviving disaster with your castmates. When the curtain finally falls, you stagger off stage and collapse into laughter and hugs, clutching each other like survivors of a shipwreck. The horror stories become in-jokes, badges of honor. Remember the night the scenery crashed? Someone will say, and everyone will groan and grin. It's a shared trauma, Broadway style. Payday is its own brand of disaster. The envelope arrives, thinner than expected, but enough to keep you in lipstick and rent for another week. If the show survives another month, maybe you'll even splurge on a pair of shoes that won't betray you mid-pirouette. And still, the show goes on. Night after night. Through sprained ankles, lost props, missing musicians, and every calamity you can imagine. Because for all the chaos, for all the mishaps and missteps, there's nothing quite like standing in the lights, sweat cooling on your skin, listening to the roar of the crowd. For a few brief moments, disaster is forgotten and only the magic remains. Then the curtain falls, you catch your breath, and get ready to do it all over again tomorrow. On Broadway, survival is an encore performance, and you're always just one disaster away from a standing ovation or a hospital bill. Either way, you keep dancing, because that's the job, and the show, as they say, must go on. Payday arrives, bringing disappointment and rumours of opportunities with producers who have more hands than scruples. Rent is due, groceries are a fantasy, And you start to wonder if your tap shoes would fetch anything at a pawn shop. There's a ritual to payday in the world of Broadway showgirls, and it's not as glamorous as the opening night crowd might imagine. You line up in a drafty corridor outside the manager's office, shifting from foot to foot, eyeing the other girls and weighing the odds. Will your check bounce higher than your kicks, or will the producer forget, again, about that night's overtime? The air is thick with anxiety, stale perfume, and the faint but persistent scent of cheap paper envelopes. When your turn comes, the manager hands you a thin envelope, eyes anywhere but your face. You try not to look immediately. Nobody wants to appear desperate, but everyone is. It never adds up. There are deductions for costumes, for house fees, for broken props you swear you never touched. Sometimes you wonder if you're actually paying them to dance. You do the math in your head and realize you'll need to stretch these dollars farther than your best split. With your envelope comes another kind of drama. The rumours swirl. Someone's cousin heard that the producer's favourite is up for a lead in the next show, but only if she meets him for a late dinner. You've learned to spot the type. Producers with perfect hair, slippery smiles and wandering hands. They call you doll and star, offer rides in fancy cars, whisper about big opportunities that always come with fine print and a bill for your dignity. You navigate these waters with practiced politeness and a bottle of safety pins clutched in your purse. Sometimes you wish you could safety pin your morals to your sleeve, just to keep them in place. Money problems are a permanent supporting character. The first stop after payday is the landlord, Mrs. Cohen, with her arms crossed and her eyebrow arched, waiting by your door before you've even counted your bills. You hand over most of your envelope, promising the rest next week. Just as soon as I get my bonus. Next week never comes. You split the rent with 3 other girls, and if you're lucky, there's enough left for a loaf of bread, a jar of pickles, and maybe a new pair of stockings that won't betray you halfway through a dance number. Groceries become a game of survival. You plan meals around cast-offs and cast parties, whatever's left from the green room or a slice of pie someone accidentally left behind at the automat. You develop a sixth sense for leftovers. At night, you joke that you could tap dance your way through the Great Depression if only someone would pay you in potatoes. The pawn shop on the corner becomes an emergency option. You eye your tap shoes, your costume jewellery, your lucky clutch. How much could they fetch? Enough for a week's rent. Enough for groceries and a ride home in a cab instead of walking in heels that bite into your feet. The calculation becomes another kind of dance, one that never leads to applause. In all this, the only certainty is each other. The girls you share a mirror with also share what little they have: an apple, a scarf, a secret stash of coins taped behind a radiator. Some weeks you lend, other weeks you borrow, always with the unspoken promise that one day you'll all be rich enough to tip the hat check girl with a whole dollar bill. And yet, you endure. Payday might bring pennies and predators, but it also brings proof that you made it through another week, that the lights haven't gone out, that you can still dance. You tuck away your few precious dollars, straighten your shoulders, and get ready for the next act, because on Broadway, survival is the longest running show of all. You read about yourself in the papers, never sure which bits are true. There's always a scandal brewing, an affair, a fool, a Newick girl with a mysterious past. Today's headline is tomorrow's lining for your dance bag. If Broadway is a circus, then the tabloids are its ringmasters, cracking their whips with headlines designed to sting. Some days you wake to find your name in bold print, your face splashed across a blurry photograph snapped as you stepped out of a stage door or into a cab. The story underneath will tell you more about the writer's imagination than your own life. According to the papers, you've dated half the orchestra, fainted on stage and started a brawl at the Algonquin all in the same week. You're not sure whether to laugh or sue. The girls gather over burnt toast and bitter coffee, passing around the latest scandal sheet. There's a perverse thrill in seeing your friends or enemies immortalized in ink, even if the facts are more fiction than truth. "Did you hear what they wrote about Nancy?" someone asks, eyes wide with delight and disbelief. Apparently she ran off with a millionaire from Cleveland. Nancy, hunched over her porridge, just shrugs. "I wish. At least then I could pay my rent. Every rumour has its own half-life. Some burn out fast, a tryst, a missed cue, a wardrobe malfunction that earns a snicker before being forgotten. Others stick around, resurfacing every few months with a new twist, like an old chorus number restaged with different costumes. Once you overheard someone in the automat recounting your supposed elopement with the stage manager. You barely knew his last name. By the next day you'd apparently been married, divorced and run out of town. There's an art to surviving scandal. You develop a thick skin, a sharper tongue, and a talent for dodging questions with a smile. When reporters lurk at the stage door, you learn to say everything and nothing all at once. We're just good friends, you say, about anyone and everyone. The show is my only true love, you declare, batting your lashes while plotting your escape route through the alley. Sometimes you feed the rumours on purpose, planting just enough mystery to stay interesting, but never enough truth to be vulnerable. The true cost of fame is privacy. You start to guard your secrets the way you guard your costume jewellery, hidden, locked away, never shared unless you trust someone with your life, and even then, only after midnight and 3 drinks. New girls arrive with wide eyes and open hearts, only to learn that in this world a friend can become a rival in a headline. You warn them gently. If you can't stand the gossip, don't stand still. Scandal can also be currency. A juicy story, even if untrue, keeps your name on people's lips, gets you a mention in the programme, maybe even bumps you up the call sheet. You see it happen. The girl with the flashiest headline gets the best solo, the most flowers, the biggest crowds at the stage door. Fame is fickle and scandal is its shadow, always threatening, sometimes useful. And yet, under all the bluster, there's a longing for something more honest. You crave a day when the only thing written about you is your talent, your hard work, your triumph over another impossible week. Instead, you settle for irony, using the day's tabloid as a cushion in your dance bag, a footnote to a life nobody but you could ever really understand. Because tomorrow's scandal is always waiting in the wings, and on Broadway, you learn to bow to the audience, laugh at the headlines, and keep your real story safe just for yourself. The truth, after all, is the best-kept secret in show business. For every spotlight there's a shadow. You learn to navigate both, trading secrets and stories, hoping the light finds you when you need it most. Sometimes it does. Most nights, it doesn't. The glamour of Broadway is real, but so are its shadows. Out front, the marquees burn bright against the city sky, promising magic and escape. People line up, eager for a night's worth of dreams. The applause washes over you like a warm tide. In those moments under the lights, you feel chosen, invincible, if only until the curtain falls. But the darkness behind the scenes is just as vast. You memorize the quietest routes backstage, slipping through narrow hallways that smell of sweat and cold cream. You know which stairwells are safe for a stolen nap, which dressing rooms shelter the kindest smiles, and which ones echo with too many tears. In the wings you linger on the edge of the light, half in, half out, waiting for your cue, for a friend, for a sign that you belong. Secrets move quickly in these corridors, carried on whispers and sideways glances. You learn to keep your own, who you love, what you fear, the injuries you hide with tape and bravado. Sometimes, late at night, you trade stories with another girl perched on a trunk, your legs swinging in time with the city's midnight rhythm. She tells you about her hometown, the sister she left behind, the promise she made to herself the first time she ever saw the city lights. You share your own confessions, careful but honest, trusting her for a little while with the parts of yourself you don't want the world to see. Not every secret is shared so willingly. There are those who prowl the edges of the stage, taking advantage of shadows, producers with hungry eyes, critics with sharper pens, fans whose affection feels more like possession. You learn when to step back, when to stand your ground, and when to disappear entirely, melting into the city until the danger passes. There are times you walk home under the streetlights, keys laced between your fingers, the sound of your own footsteps echoing a little too loudly. Broadway's light may dazzle, but it never quite chases away the dark. You become an expert in finding small comforts. The battered kettle in the dressing room, a stolen laugh, the warmth of someone's hand squeezed tightly before curtain. You notice things, the chipped edge of a favourite mug, the patch of sunlight on the fire escape, the way someone's eyes linger too long on the exit. These small, bright things become your talismans, reminders that the world is not all shadow, even when it feels that way. There are nights when the loneliness seeps in. After the show, you slip out the stage door into air that feels too big, too empty. The crowd is gone, the city's pulse fading. You climb the stairs to your little room, peel off your glamour with cold cream, and stare at the ceiling, willing the dreams to come. Sometimes they do. A memory, a hope, a glimmer of something better. Most nights, though, it's just you, your heartbeat, and the hush that comes with longing. Still, you return to the theatre to the hope that tonight the light will find you. Maybe you'll land your big solo. Maybe you'll catch a stranger's eye and see real kindness. Maybe you'll hear your name whispered with respect instead of envy. Maybe, for a moment, you'll step fully into the spotlight, the shadow banished, if only for a verse. Broadway is a world of dazzling highs and secret lows, of bright lights and shadowed corners. You survive by learning to dance between them, never losing hope, never surrendering your secrets, always looking for the next glimmer. Because even on the darkest nights, the promise of the spotlight is enough to keep you going, one step at a time. Eventually the music fades and the applause becomes a memory. You kick off your shoes, count your bruises, and wonder if you'll ever dance again. But for now, you made it through one more night on Broadway, and sometimes that's enough. Mornings after a show have their own peculiar silence, a hush that settles over the city, seeping into the bones of every tired performer. You wake up sore, muscles protesting each movement, remnants of glitter still clinging to your skin like confetti from a party you barely remember. The room is dim and quiet, broken only by the creak of pipes and the distant horns on 7th Avenue. You lie there for a minute, letting the quiet hold you, resisting the urge to check the clock or count how many hours until you have to do it all again. The morning after isn't glamorous. There's no applause, no bouquets, just the slow process of returning to yourself. You massage your aching feet, find new bruises in places you didn't know could bruise, and make a mental list of things that will need sewing before curtain tonight. There's a half-eaten roll on the nightstand, a cup of coffee gone cold, and yesterday's costume, still heavy with sweat and dreams, draped over the chair. It's easy to feel small, drifting between exhaustion and doubt. You wonder if it's worth it, if the pain, the uncertainty and the hunger for applause will ever give way to something more solid. Your dreams feel fragile in the morning light. The plans you whispered to the ceiling at midnight now seem impossibly far away. Maybe you'll make it to the big time. Maybe you'll always be in the chorus, one step behind the spotlight, hoping your chance will come with the next audition, the next call, the next show. Still, you rise. You pull on yesterday's slippers, tie your hair back, and step into the tiny kitchen where someone's left you half a grapefruit and a note that says, "You were magic last night." It's these small kindnesses, the secret acts of care between girls fighting the same uphill battle, that keep you moving. You eat in silence, listening to the city wake up outside your window, watching the sunlight paint your floor in golden dust. By noon, you're back at the theatre, sewing kit in hand, ready to repair costumes and patch your own resolve. The stage looks different in the daylight, less mysterious, more ordinary. But as you run your fingers over the boards, you remember all the feet that have danced here before you, all the girls who dared to dream big and settled, at least for a while, for dreams just out of reach. Sometimes, in the quiet, you let yourself imagine something different. Maybe a new city, a new show, a new life beyond the wings and footlights. You remember the things you wanted before Broadway, the family you left, the promises you made, the version of yourself that wasn't defined by curtain calls or critical reviews. But the city has a way of pulling you back. The lure of possibility, the thrill of maybe next time, keeps your suitcase packed but never quite zipped, and so you keep going. The curtain will rise again tonight and you'll be there, bruises hidden, dreams stitched inside your costume. You'll dance because it's what you do. Because hope is a habit, and the stage is the only place you feel completely alive. When the music starts, the morning aches fade, replaced by adrenaline and the magic of 1,000 eyes watching. For a moment, you're not tired, not afraid, not waiting for something better. You're just here, part of the story, dancing on dreams that, deferred or not, are still yours. And as the lights come up, you whisper a thank you to the stage, to the city, to yourself for surviving another night. Sometimes that's enough. Sometimes that's everything. Every night ends the same way, dodging hopeful admirers loitering at the stage door. Some bring flowers, some bring poetry, and one or two just bring themselves, and a suspicious aura of mothballs and desperation. You perfect the art of the brisk, polite escape, weaving between autograph seekers, flasks of perfume, and the odd fan convinced you're the reincarnation of Cleopatra with a Brooklyn accent. The show might be over, but for the girls of Broadway, the real circus begins at the alley door. As soon as you step off the stage, applause still ringing in your ears, you're confronted by a crowd as eager as any matinee audience, just with fewer manners and much more cologne. These are the stage door Johnnies, men of all ages and ambitions, clutching gifts and nervous grins, waiting for a sliver of attention from the city's most ephemeral stars. Some nights, you can smell them before you see them. A fog of pomade, cigar smoke, and something sweetly medicinal that's probably just cheap aftershave. The boldest hold out bouquets. Others offer letters sealed with more wax than a city hall notary, or shyly proffer boxes of chocolates, as if sugar is the secret currency of a showgirl's heart. You collect the notes, smile at the flowers, and discreetly palm the chocolates to the stage doorman, who has developed an impressive sweet tooth and an even more impressive sense of discretion. But for every harmless fan, there's another who lingers too long, whose gaze sticks like flypaper. You become an expert in reading the crowd, scanning for the ones who wait quietly, the ones who fidget, the ones who stare a little too hard at your legs or recite your lines back to you in voices slick with longing. You never leave the theatre alone. There's safety in numbers, in laughter, in the practiced art of linking arms with another girl as you cut a swath through the would-be suitors. Every performer develops her own routine. One friend flashes her brightest smile, signs a few autographs, then ducks into the first taxi she sees, whether or not it's going her way. Another always pretends to be deep in conversation, clutching her dance bag and muttering about notes from the director that absolutely cannot wait. Your trick is a simple one. Move quickly, answer questions with questions, and keep your purse close and your wits closer. Still, some admirers are almost endearing. The old man who shows up every Thursday with carnations and a programme to be signed. The sailor on leave who just wants a photo to send home. The awkward college boy who brings a single daisy and a poem he's written on the back of his tram ticket. These you indulge. A kind word, a hurried signature, a smile that lingers just long enough to make them feel seen. Broadway can be lonely, and sometimes it helps to remember that for someone out there, you're a little piece of magic. Of course, the stories get weirder as the hours get later. A man once proposed to you with a box of engagement rings. Pick any one, before his wife dragged him away by the collar. Another serenaded the chorus line in the rain, voice cracking, suit soaked through, dignity dissolving like sugar in gin. You've seen grown men weep, young boys tremble, and society ladies hiss jealous curses from behind their husbands' broad backs. Sometimes it's almost flattering. Most times it's exhausting. The stage door is both finish line and obstacle course, and by the time you reach the street your smile is as worn as your tap shoes. But you always make it home, flowers in hand, stories to tell, and the comforting knowledge that even as the curtain falls, the city is still watching, still dreaming, still chasing a little Broadway magic. One autograph, one midnight escape, one stage-struck admirer at a time. You'd think the local pharmacy was just for cough drops, but here in the city that never really sleeps, the pharmacist is more confident than chemist. He knows your preferred brand of rouge, your preferred brand of morphine, and when to look the other way as you buy a little something for your nerves. Everyone claims it's for headaches, and somehow everyone's headaches come with a side of wild hallucinations and jittery jazz hands. In 1926, the Broadway pharmacy is less a sterile white box and more an open secret, a bustling crossroads for everyone in need of a quick fix, a fresh start, or a second chance. The shelves are lined with tins of talcum powder, bars of harsh soap, and cough syrups loaded with more surprises than a magician's hat. The bell above the door jingles at all hours, announcing a steady stream of showgirls, musicians, insomniacs, and desperate producers with more worries than hair. You enter, hat pulled low and hope tucked deep in your pocket. The pharmacist, Mr. Silverman, greets you with a knowing smile and a nod, already reaching for the little brown bottle you always pretend is for your aunt's sciatica. His white coat is as crisp as his discretion. He never asks questions and never repeats answers. His only vice is a stack of racing forms tucked under the register, and an uncanny memory for every secret spilled between the cough drops and liniment. It's a scene as familiar as the dressing room. Chorus girls in line for face powder, someone blushing while inquiring about women's remedies, a tap dancer with a sprained ankle who swears he just needs bandages and a bit of tonic, preferably the kind laced with laudanum. In the back, a jazz musician argues the merits of one energy syrup over another, while an older woman haggles for the last tin of violet pastilles. You watch it all from behind your compact, grateful for the anonymity that a crowd of dreamers provides. Prescriptions are optional, rumours are currency. Word travels fast about which mixtures to request, what the code words are for something a little stronger, and just how much camphor you need to convince the doctor you're unfit for rehearsal. The counter is a confessional. Aches, anxieties, and heartbreaks exchanged for powders, potions, and pills. If you have a real headache, you're almost out of place. You slip Mr. Silverman a note with your order, and he vanishes into the back, returning with a paper bag and a sympathetic glance. Get some rest, he advises, though both of you know rest is a rare luxury. Sometimes he throws in a peppermint or a fresh box of safety pins on the house for good luck. You wonder if he does this for everyone, or just the ones who look a little too thin around the eyes. The pharmacy is also where you hear things. Who's out sick, who's on the mend, who had to pawn her shoes for medicine. Stories ripple through the aisles in whispers and sidelong glances. Sometimes you run into friends, sometimes rivals, all united by the need for something to take the edge off the relentless beat of Broadway. You leave the shop with your little brown bag, the contents rattling like maracas in your purse. You tell yourself it's for emergencies, but soon the emergency becomes every matinee, every sleepless night, every brush with heartbreak. The city churns outside, but for a moment, with the bell jingling behind you and hope disguised as medicine in your hand, you feel almost steady. Later, as you dab your new rouge and measure out just enough of your headache cure to calm the jitters, you remind yourself that everyone here is just trying to get by. Maybe tomorrow you'll try fresh air or faith, or some other remedy that doesn't require a pharmacist's blessing. But for tonight, in a world where everything is over the counter, you're grateful for the pharmacist who knows how to keep your secrets, and for a city that's never really out of stock on ways to make the world a little easier to bear. The stage isn't the only thing that cracks under pressure. You get the dreaded envelope, a pink slip, a polite thank you, and suddenly you're out of a job faster than you can say last call at the speakeasy. The city's full of girls just like you. Too many dreams, not enough stage lights. You learn to audition with a smile and leave with your pride tucked carefully in your purse, next to the last of your rent money. Losing a role on Broadway isn't always a tragedy, but it's never a surprise. You might see it coming. A new girl arrives, taller, louder, with kicks that reach the ceiling and a laugh that makes directors forget your name. Or maybe you don't see it coming at all. One night you're taking your bow, the next you're reading your name crossed out on a call sheet. The letter is always formal, always regretful, never truly apologetic. It's not you, it's the show, they say, or we're going in a different direction. The only direction you're going is out the stage door, hat in hand, dignity trailing behind you like a shadow. You pack your things quickly. No one wants to linger. Costumes you once considered lucky are folded neatly away. Old programs tossed into the trash with the last of your confidence. You say your goodbyes, some sincere, most polite, and promise to stay in touch, even though you know how rare that is in a city that moves this fast. The theatre world is small, but the distance between success and the breadline feels impossibly wide. Auditioning again is an act of stubborn optimism. You press your dress, patch the holes in your shoes and head uptown, downtown, wherever there's a piano and a producer with a clipboard. The waiting rooms are packed with girls who look just like you, or rather, girls who'd look like the dream you used to have of yourself. Polished, hopeful, faces scrubbed clean of disappointment. You rehearse your smile, your pitch, your patter. You dance like the world is watching, even though you know most people have already looked away. Every rejection feels a little less sharp, a little more expected. The first time, you cry. The second time, you go out for drinks with the only other girl cut from the chorus. The third time, you treat yourself to a donut and call it self-care. By the 10th, you simply shrug and try again. Broadway teaches you resilience, or maybe just an ability to pretend you're resilient. But the heartbreak is real. For every star who finds her light, there are 100 girls left in the wings. You listen to your friends talk about their next big chance, their new role, their big break, and you want to be happy for them. Sometimes you even manage it. Other times, you envy them fiercely, wishing you could bottle whatever luck or talent or twist of fate brought them applause and kept you in the shadows. Still, you hustle. You take jobs between shows, coat check girl, waitress, maybe even a department store Santa's elf if the season is right. You tap dance at parties for tips, sing in smoky clubs for the cost of cab fare home. The city never stops, and neither can you, because rent waits for no one and Broadway rarely calls twice. And sometimes just when you're ready to give up, a new opportunity appears. A friend puts in a good word, a desperate director needs a replacement, a last-minute audition goes your way. Hope stirs, stubborn and wild, and you find yourself back in the wings, heart-pounding, dreams patched but still wearable. Because if there's one thing a Broadway girl knows, it's this. You can lose a contract, a role, even your place in the chorus, but you never quite lose the dream. Not completely. You carry it with you, tucked between your lipstick and your pride, ready to be dusted off and danced back to life the next time the lights go up. Even showgirls get one day to themselves, allegedly. You spend your rest day in the automat, trading gossip for watery coffee and mechanical sandwiches. The room is thick with rumours, cheap perfume, and the faint hope that maybe, just maybe, your luck will turn with Monday's audition. Or maybe you'll just eat 3 slices of pie and call it self-care. The automat is its own brand of magic. A self-serve cafeteria where the city's strivers gather beneath flickering lights, clutching nickels and dreams in equal measure. The walls are tiled in white and yellow, more cheerful than any boarding house you've ever known. Along one wall, rows of little glass windows wait to be opened, each hiding a slice of cake, a stack of ham sandwiches, or a slab of mystery meat that glows a suspicious shade of green. You peer through the panes like a child in a candy shop, hoping for something fresh, or at least something edible. Showgirls take their time here. You slide your coins into the slot and claim a sandwich, bread slightly stale, feeling just generous enough to justify the price. Someone always claims the last chicken pie, an unwritten rule that if you snooze, you lose both lunch and dignity. You stake out a corner table, claiming it with your dance bag and your best don't even try at glare. Within moments, the others trickle in. Girls from last night's chorus, a tap dancer with his hat in his hands, a stagehand who never quite shakes the grease from his fingernails. Conversation at the automat is a full-contact sport. Secrets and stories spill over formica tables along with coffee and the occasional cascade of sugar packets. Who got cut from the lineup? Who's up for a new role? Who might be stepping out with a certain saxophonist? Nothing is sacred, and everything is fair game for speculation. If you're lucky, you'll hear good news secondhand before your next audition. If you're unlucky, you'll learn about your replacement over a bowl of limp macaroni. Food is only half the reason you come here. The other half is belonging to a tribe of survivors who know that Broadway's true drama happens far from the footlights. You commiserate over sore ankles, compare bruises like badges, and promise to meet up for practice that usually turns into gossip and day-old pie. You share war stories about wardrobe malfunctions and unforgettable flops. No one is too proud to laugh at themselves or to comfort the girl who can't afford a second cup of coffee. Even on a day off, you're never truly off. There are lines to memorise, shoes to polish, and a mental script of thank yous for that one casting agent who always forgets your name. But for an hour or two in the automat, you let it all go. You eat what you want, or at least what's available. You listen to the city's heartbeat in the clink of china and the low hum of neon. And if someone orders a fourth piece of pie, no one judges. Everyone knows hunger, of the body, the heart, the spotlight. Afternoon sunlight slants through the windows, glinting off half-empty coffee cups. Time stretches in that lazy golden way it never does on work days. You let yourself believe that maybe things will be different this week. Maybe you'll land the role. Maybe the city will finally smile on you. Not just the it girls and the lucky ones. Maybe tomorrow. Eventually someone glances at the clock and the spell breaks. You gather your things, trading promises to meet again next Sunday. The automat empties slowly, showgirls drifting out into the city. Bellies a little fuller, hearts a little lighter. And for one sweet day, pie and hope are enough. So tonight, as the last notes of jazz fade and the applause finally dies, you can let the chaos of Broadway drift away. You've survived another impossible day, danced through the pain, laughed through the exhaustion, dodged midnight suitors and predatory producers, and somehow kept your dream stitched together with little more than powder, pluck, and pure stubbornness. If you've ever felt overwhelmed by work, by bills, by the noise of a city that never seems to sleep, just remember the heroin-addicted showgirls of 1920s Broadway. They lived for the spotlight and survived in the shadows, all while tap dancing through heartbreak and hangovers in shoes one size too small. Their days were a whirlwind of quick changes, bad coffee, questionable medicine, and friendship forged in the furnace of stage lights. Their nights were long, but somehow they still managed to shine. So, as you settle into your own bed tonight, soft sheets, running water, maybe even a lock on your door, spare a quiet moment for those who came before you. For every chorus girl who risked it all for a shot at stardom. For every friend who shared a dressing room and a secret. For everyone who learned to find joy and humour, even on the hardest days. History, at its core, is proof that people will endure almost anything in the name of hope. The heroin-addicted showgirl may not have had much, but she had resilience, wit, and a talent for surviving the messiest acts life could throw her way. So tonight, as you drift towards sleep, maybe whisper a little thank you to your own stubborn heart, and to those unsung performers who made it through another curtain call. Because if there's one lesson Broadway teaches, it's that you don't have to be perfect. You just have to keep dancing, one step, one song, one impossible night at a time. Good night, sleep well, and may your dreams be a little brighter, and your mornings a lot less complicated than life backstage in 1926.